Welcome to Defender. I'm your host, David Marsh, and today we have an excellent show lined up for you with special guest, Mike Sannella. All right, Defender would like to welcome Mike Sannella to the show. Mike has been branch manager at Securitas, area VP for LPL Financial, board member at Valecitos Water District, and is currently the security manager for General Atomics and a city council member for the city of San Marcos. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, David. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We've known each other for quite a long time, about 12 years. And I thought it'd be kind of interesting to sort of kind of hit the backstory of how you and I met.
It was like a typical, vendor customer kind of, meeting, opportunity to get to know each other, opportunity to get to know what your products could do and what value they could bring to our security program. And I can't believe it's been 12 years. That's just remarkable. But I thought it was a very productive meeting that we had. And what I really liked about it is you came across not just as someone who was knowledgeable about what you were talking about, but you also were very genuine as a person. And I think that's why 12 years later, we're still friends. And over those 12 years, while we weren't always doing business together, we stayed connected and we would meet up every once in a while. And I don't, honestly, as an end user, I don't do that with a lot of my vendors. So I think that speaks volumes about, again, everything that you were bringing to the table that day, but also you as a person.
I appreciate that. I think it's a neat story of just how, you go into an environment, and I think you guys were pretty far down the road of looking at a video surveillance technology. And you know how, especially at that point, because IP was fairly new, where you have new technology coming in, and then you sort of have these promises from various vendors, and they were not really talking too much about the compression and how that was going to affect your network. And of course, now you're kind of relying on your IT department for that. Yeah. And so I think that was sort of the reveal was, well, this is what the impact's going to be over here versus, getting this and getting panoramics and all the rest of the video surveillance side. So that was a great start for sure for the relationship. And I appreciate that.
You probably remember, but we were having bandwidth issues already. And so bringing on the wrong product would have just compounded that issue. And I really appreciated the transparency that you brought to that discussion. And even to the point where maybe it wasn't beneficial to you to do so, but you still did that because you were looking at it from a long-term standpoint. So really, really thank you for that.
No, absolutely. And like you said, here we are 12 years later. So I guess that shows you that doing something for the long term for your customer is just really important. And I wish more people did that, because I think, in the long term of things, that's what really matters, because people move around and people change quite often, as you know, in this industry. So that's an important thing. So I wanted to kind of get your backstory. I mean, I kind of ran through, your bio, where you came from, but what kind of got you interested in the security industry? It's always a little bit different every time I talk to somebody about that.
Yeah, my security story is probably not as unique as you might think it is, but it's not really exciting. So I started off way back when I was going through college. I was a security officer for a technology company here in San Diego, in Rancho Bernardo, and had zero interest in actually doing anything in security. I was studying to be either wanted to be a high school civics teacher or a U.S. history teacher in high school. But as I spent a couple years at this company, learning their program, getting to know the people, and then they've of course got to know me. Right before I was about ready to graduate, they said, "Hey, we know that you're going in one direction, but if you'd like to stay, we'd like to give you a promotion and have you stay with us." And at the time, it was it was a place that I was comfortable with. I was learning a lot. I was being challenged, and the money was better, because in California, teachers just, especially back then, didn't make a lot of money. So having just about ready to get out of college, I accepted the position, and I've been doing that. I've been in the security / enterprise risk world for my entire career now. So it's been 25 plus years. And it hasn't always been security. I've done business continuity and some other principles within this the risk world, if you will. But yeah, it's been a great journey, and it's all I know now, so I'm stuck in here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just funny how you sort of get in this world and then like you were saying, there's just a lot of different kind of subsets of that.
There is, and the principles of what we do can be applied across every industry, right? And over the course of my career, I've been in, started off in working at that technology company. I've been, involved with biotech companies. I've been involved with, financial services companies. I've been involved with the defense industry, and it's really the the regulations around what kind of governs some of the things that you have to do from a security standpoint might be different. It might be different agencies that you have to comply with. In defense, it's DoD. Energy, it's DOE. In financial services, it's FINRA, and in biotech, it's FDA. But the concepts of what they're looking for from an access control standpoint, from your insider threat management programs, all those things, your business continuity principles and redundancies within what you're doing to be able to continue to safeguard whatever it is that your company's working on. They remain the same. You might tweak them a little bit, but they don't differ too much from industry to industry.
Yeah, and then of course, in security, you're touching every single department within those companies too.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you have a really healthy security program, especially on the physical security side, your goal is to try to create a culture of security and safety, and you want all of your employees, 100% of your employees, to be security minded, especially when you're in certain industries, like when in defense, for example. I think it's pretty much kind of common sense that what defense companies do requires all the employees to be engaged. Sometimes they'll have to have different levels of clearances, so they're already going through a little bit more scrutiny just to be employed there. And so you want to build that culture, but you have responsibility for emergency response. So every employee needs to know who to call, how do I escalate an incident, and that's just the starting point. And so it's you touch everybody. I mean, most places that I've worked at, the security team was part of the new hire orientation presentation, right? And so we would get up there and touch the employees from day one.
Yeah, that sets the whole tone. So, in terms of what we've seen over the last decade, I mean, you've been in the industry for a long time. First it was really this convergence with IP, and where do you see it going now? There's just so much new sort of innovation happening at sort of a breakneck speed. What's hit your radar?
It's moving so fast. I think for us currently, we're not currently using a lot of cloud-based solutions, and I think we're going to start going that direction out of necessity. That'll probably be the biggest change to answer your question. But I went to ISC West a few months ago, and every time I walk on that floor, and you might think it's only been 12 months that have passed, but there's just so much evolution in the technology, and I think we're going to probably talk a little bit about AI and robotics and some other technology in the future, but it's all changing, and it's going to continue to snowball faster and faster as the years go on.
Yeah, I can't believe how much it's changed just in the last 10, and now it's like you said, we're speeding up as AI, robotics, things like that are started entering into the mainstream. Where that was pretty fringe maybe 5 years ago. Drones was just sort of getting into the mix maybe in 2015. But I was going to ask you, you've been on both sides of the equation as a system integrator. What's one of those things that you look for in a good system integrator? What makes a good system integrator when you're working with one?
What's interesting? This may be a surprising answer. I'm not sure, but for me, as I was younger in my career, you're more in the weeds, right? And you're a little bit more hands-on. You're more involved with the installation, the project management, all of that from a day-to-day standpoint. As I continue to advance in my career, you're less involved with those day-to-day things. And so what I really look for with an integrator, and what I've had a lot of success with the 2 or 3 key integrators that we use on a fairly regular basis, is that I want to be able just to say, I need a camera over there, or I need a card reader over there. I don't, there was a time when I would put together an entire, scope of work, and and have all these details in there. I don't have time to do that, currently. And fortunately, I have people on my team now that can do that for me, which helps. But at the end of the day, it's so much more efficient for me to be able to have a good relationship with an integrator, just to be able to say, I need a solution over here, and then they'll build a proposal around that. And of course, you want to compete that to make sure that you're protected from a fairness standpoint and everything, and the company's protected.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, to be able to rely and trust on an integrator to be able to give you accurate information without having to ask a lot of questions. And what I've also found is the more you work with the same integrator, that they become a lot more knowledgeable of your systems that you have in place. And so they have less questions, which is also nice, and that helps that efficiency. And that's really what I look for. And I know that doesn't really sound like anything too exciting, like you might have been expecting something different, but it's really just having that trust with an integrator to know that I'm going to get the right solution at the right price, and not really have to spend a lot of my own personal time, explaining what needs to be done.
Yeah, you want to hand that over and know that it's going to be executed well. And like you were saying, like camera placement's a great example where they're not pointing it in the wrong area or positioning it wrong. You just know that they know their job. They're going to put it in exactly where you would have put it. And so the more you work with folks like that, yeah, it's just a lot easier for sure.
Definitely.
What's the hardest thing about researching new solutions that you find? You mentioned ISC West, and of course, it's just massive, right? There's really no way to see everything. So most of the time, research comes down to, getting on the internet, looking at information, and then trying to muscle your way through, the marketing stuff and try to get sort of the answers that you're looking for. What are some of the challenges do you have on that? What's that like typically?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it on the head, David. It's just that there's so much out there. I mean, if you look up just CCTV cameras, right, and you're going to get, literally hundreds of thousands of different options. And I think that's part of the challenge, but I think the solution to that is building those relationships like you and I have. There's been a few times over that 12 years where we just got together and you had a new product, a new solution that you were working with, and you weren't even trying to sell it to me. You just were trying to educate me about it and let me know what it was all about. And that's helpful. And I think as a security leader, you have to invest that time to go to those conferences, to know what the latest technologies are, to build those relationships with the key people so you can sit down with them in a conference room and actually, touch the solution and have, ask questions about it and have a deeper conversation about it. You're right. I mean, the big challenge of just getting onto Google and searching for stuff, there's just so much garbage out there, to be honest, so much noise that's not really helpful to that search. And so investing the time to actually meet face to face with the right people and go to the conferences and learn and educate yourself on those types of things is just so critical.
Yeah, and then there's everyone's environment's a little bit different, and so you have to think about how's this going to integrate into my environment. Yep. So you sort of get these hypotheticals with a lot of the vendors at first, and you're like, well, what does that look like, and what's the behind the scenes kind of cost of whether it's infrastructure or anything like that you have to think about to actually implement that and get the results. So those big decisions for you guys as well.
Yeah, they are. It's a combination of making sure that whatever we're considering, it's compatible, and you're always going to have all the back end costs that you have to take into consideration if you have to change anything. The other, I think, kind of challenging part of not necessarily doing the research, but making kind of a buying decision is you want to build a program that it's risk based, and there's a lot of really super cool technology out there. And as a kind of a person that's been in security forever, I would love to have all these great gadgets and the latest of everything. And but to be mindful of the corporate dollars that we're responsible for, you try to build the right security program to meet the risks that you're trying to to mitigate or manage, and in doing so, sometimes you don't get the greatest technology that's out there because you probably really don't need it. It's more of a want to have versus a need to have, and so that's always a bit of a juggling exercise for us as well.
Yeah, I find probably one of the biggest challenges for people like yourself, and in the security side, is they have to bring these things to their CFO, and then really justify it, like you're saying, on a life safety, or what's the impact on this, and for the dollar spent, and that some people are better than others at that. Do you have any advice for security professionals that are kind of tuning in, like they have to go before their CFO on this great solution that they like? What's your advice to them?
Yeah, I think it's all about relationships, right? So try to the best that you're able to try to build a relationship ahead of time with your CFO, so it's a little easier conversation to have. But I think the other piece of it is all of those agencies that I mentioned earlier, from the FDA to the DoD to the FINRA, they all have compliance requirements. So if you can tie what you're trying to do to meeting a compliance component to the actual business, I think that makes it a lot easier, because it takes away that want to have, and now it's okay. This is going to help us achieve this compliance piece of it. Or if we're ever audited, we'll be able to use this solution to pull up the data to show that we were doing what we said we were going to do from a security standpoint. And so I think if you can have that conversation and you tie it back to the core competency of the business that you're working in, I think it will really be it'll help go a long way when you're having those conversations.
Yeah, we were kind of touching on this earlier, so you kind of got the wheels turning for me. Is you have to balance between insider threats and outside threats. What are the biggest challenges with that, and trying to sort of balance those two, and looking at solutions for that?
Yeah, I think the challenges would be the same as with any threat, but with insider threat, every company has insiders, right? And so there's always a risk of that. And I think a lot of it just, again, depends on what industry you're in, what are you doing. But regardless what industry you're in, every company's got proprietary information. There could be other just concerns with workplace violence, and everything that comes with having people right around. And so right. I think part of the challenge is that this kind of ties into how quickly technology is improving and evolving, but the access or the availability of personal information is so readily available now with between our phones and our computers and everything else that we do, that I'm finding over time in recent years that you're having a lot more conversations with your legal department and your human resources department to have a conversation and also protect yourself from a potential litigation of like not overusing this technology or misusing this technology in some way that might invade somebody's privacy or go too far. And so that's one of the challenges that we're constantly looking at. And it could be even just from nowadays, just even access control reports, right? And if you're looking at when did an employee access the building, how often did they come to work? We got a lot of those types of questions, especially during COVID, when people were starting to go work from home. But when we were trying to have people come back to work, and going into these different hybrid type of systems for work from home and work in the office, there would be some managers that really wanted their employees in the office. And so you get these questions that come to the security department, like, hey, can I get an access report on John Smith, right? And we don't do that, right? And so not simply just for, time and attendance. So, and that's at advice of, folks within the legal department and others. And so those are considerations that maybe we didn't have to really take too seriously 10 years ago. And it's just a different world that we live in right now, because we have so much information. And so you got to use it appropriately, and you got to use it wisely. And so that's one of the big challenges from the outsider threat perspective. That really depends on what industry you're in, because if you're in an industry that's either a very high profile, maybe you have a high profile CEO that's very recognizable, like a Bill Gates or something like that, right? That adds a different layer of risk to both principal and also the company. If you're in a controversial industry where maybe the products that you make, not everybody in the country or around the world embraces those products or the mission or whatever it might be, and so that could increase your outsider risk, and that's what really you have to do constantly. You're doing assessments of your program, but also your threat environment, and then ultimately you're going to design and implement a program that it's kind of an all risk approach, but it's you're going to try to capture everything that about what that threat environment looks like, and build a program that's appropriate to meet it, and have different levers in place that different. You always hear about the peeling back the onion, but different layers of your security program, so that it reduces your vulnerability. Right, if it gets harder and harder as you get closer to the center of it, and so that's the key. But I think a lot of that risk assessment part of it ties a lot into what you're doing. I think if you're selling flowers at a flower shop, probably not too many people are going to be like looking in saying, "Oh, I'm mad because you're selling flowers." But if you're manufacturing guns or something like that, it might be different, right? So if you're manufacturing pharmaceuticals, depending on what the pharmaceutical is, it could be controversial. So it really just depends on what you're doing.
What's funny too, it reminded me of the Chat GPT starts hitting and it went crazy, and then a bunch of these organizations, they're like, no, we don't want intellectual property going out the door because you guys are typing all this information into it.
Yeah, and we're just at the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the artificial intelligence and just all the different technological advances that are coming. I personally believe we don't even know what we don't know yet. So it's coming for sure.
Man, isn't that the truth? I think about, this is a good kind of thing to probably touch on, is just, your thoughts on AI, robotics, and, high security environment. Do you see any risks of these things sort of entering in, even if they're security products? Like, what is your sort of risk assessment with some of this technology? Because there is so much to it that's very different.
Yeah, I think there's going to, before I answer the question, I think we're definitely going that direction, and I think there's some benefits to it. I think it'll help security programs become more efficient in some ways. Maybe there could even be some long-term cost savings. There might be an initial investment, but your return on your investment will probably, there could be, depending on how you implement it, if you're able to save security officer hours and that kind of stuff, based off the technology that you're implementing, there might be a way to save some money there. Anytime you introduce new technology to your program, I think you have the risk that all of this technology is communicating out there, right? And bringing information in, putting information out, and that's it's no different than how you have to password protect your cameras, right? And so you got to, once you bring those lines of communication into your program, then you're opening an opportunity for somebody to hack into it and do things that they shouldn't do with it. So that's your biggest risk. And so you have to protect it. You have to make sure that whatever you're purchasing has some safeguards built into it. And then you have to make sure that you're using it in a way. I'm sure you've seen it many times that, you've had customers that don't even password protect their cameras, right? And so they can get, if you have the IP address, you can tap in there and you can watch the camera from your house. So it can be dangerous. And I think anytime you have those lines of communications flowing back and forth in and out of your program, you need to make sure that the wrong people don't get into it.
Yeah, especially with cloud. You were mentioning that earlier. It's just like, well, cloud is great because the benefits are massive, but at the same time, you have to. I'm sure there's a lot of check marks that have to go and be checked for you, and the cybersecurity side where you have other departments that have to look at this, before that even goes out.
Yeah, definitely. yeah. It goes back to your statement earlier about how we work with and touch every department within the company. I mean, just in this short conversation that we've had, we've talked about our cyber team, HR team, legal team. So I mean, just in 20-30 minutes of talking, right? And so it's absolutely true. We're engaged with everybody.
And has cybersecurity sort of made you evaluate security vendors differently now? Now that we've definitely moved from sort of the basics of IP coming into the industry in the last, I'd say 5 years. It's definitely people kind of got a wake up call with some of these vendors with being hacked.
Yeah. I mean, you read some big names out there. I won't throw them out there, but big retailers. We've all heard about the credit card issues, and it's something I think that has been top of mind for everybody in our security industry as we shop for different solutions and implement them within our programs. And I think again, not to keep repeating the same thing, but it's just going to become more and more of a priority as time goes on. We have and we, like every company nowadays, has a cyber team, and they're involved in all of those different evaluations when anything it may not even be a security solution. It might be something else that a server the company's buying for whatever different reason. And so the cyber team is always part of that. Certainly, one good practice is to kind of write some terms and conditions into your contracts, so that way you're level setting expectations and requirements from the get go. And so it's definitely been a big part of our decision making process, and it's just going to continue to become more and more of a big part of that. So
yeah, I mean, everything's basically a little computer at this point, so I'm sure they touch almost every product.
Yep, for sure.
So what else is on your radar in terms of just the industry at large? Is there anything that sort of has piqued your interest in things that you're sort of looking at or interested in?
Yeah, we have where I'm at now, and over the 25 years I've been in a bunch of different companies where their programs were in different levels of maturity. The program that I happen to be part of right now is fairly mature and is in a really good spot. And so we are like I mentioned earlier, we're kind of looking at some cloud-based solutions, and we're working with our IT folks on that. But really, we're kind of in a good spot right now, and we're not really actively out there trying to bring on new technology. We're replacing and upgrading some of the stuff that we have, but it's there's not an active push for a new solution to solve a problem that we haven't already mitigated.
Nice. Well, I think that there's a lot of new things coming in. Like I was saying, robotics is pretty interesting, just in terms of augmenting guards and things of that nature. So that you look at the stuff from Boston Dynamics, it's pretty interesting, especially if it's autonomous. And then there's some other solutions that are out there. So those are another tool, right, in the toolbox to hopefully integrate. And that's really the big key, though, is these things that really have to integrate with what you already have to make it actually a solution that fits into that layer. Like you were talking about it, it's a layered security solution. You're trying to have all these components to complete a solution. And I think that the robotics component is really interesting to me, together with AI, and AI maybe making analytics actually very accurate, so you're not getting all these false alarms like we have in the past.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what you're doing for a city council member for San Marcos.
Yeah, the city council's been great. I was elected last November. Prior to that, I was an elected member of the water board here in North San Diego County for 8 years, and so I was fairly familiar with being part of a government board. But the government scope difference between the city and a water district is just night and day. And so it's been a learning curve. It's been exciting. For 7 months, now 8 months. I can't believe it's August. And it's something that yeah, I was a poli-sci minor in college. I've always kind of had a little bit of interest in government and politics, and I've been living in San Marcos since 1996. So I've been involved in the community for a long time, and different groups that we participate in, and some charities that we volunteer with, and I'm the kind of person that if I'm going to be part of a community, I want to give back. I want to be part of the decision making process. And and so I after doing 8 years at the water district, I decided to run and won. And now we're just, again, we're kind of I'm in the bit of that honeymoon phase where everything's still pretty good. And I'm very fortunate that the council members and all of our staff down at the city. San Marcos is a beautiful city, right? And so there wasn't, people ask like, well, why, what really drove you to do this? And usually people run for office because they're upset about something that, either a law or something that's going on in their community. That really kind of it's usually a negative thing that motivates them to get involved and do something like this. And for me, it really wasn't that. It was more of, let's keep the good times going. I always have, a little bit of why I do this is because I want government to work better. And it's that kind of continuous improvement, that corporate background that I have. And I try to apply that, and build that culture at the places that I go to, like either the water district or the city. But San Marcos, we have world-renowned parks and trail system. Our public safety record is great. We kind of go back and forth as being the first or second safest city in San Diego. Either one of those are really good spots to be. So we're the education hub of North County with Cal State San Marcos and Palomar College, and we have a bunch of other smaller educational facilities. And it's a great community, and it's just a good way for me to give back and have a little bit of influence on kind of the direction and the future of the city. And I just really enjoy it.
Well, it's grown a lot.
Yeah, it has.
Since we first were there, it's like, wow, it's more than doubled since at least, 15 years?
Oh yeah, I would say it's about doubled. Yeah, probably over the last 15 or so years. And growth is good, but with growth comes challenges too, right? And so you have to keep your road infrastructure up. We work very closely with the school district and the water district because it wasn't. I know we had a wet winter this year, so water's kind of off the front page, but it'll be back on the front page, in the future. And we do live in a desert, and so you're always managing all those different, resources that you have. But you talk about growth and even housing in general, but that's one of the biggest challenges that we have as policymakers, is that there's a housing affordability crisis. And there, you just look at the markets and you can see that there's not, rents are really high because there's not a lot of homes that are coming up for rent. There's not a lot of new homes being built. So there's a supply issue. And so you're always trying so you're juggling these different challenges of finding the right balance of making sure that we have enough resources like water, or that our road infrastructure can handle new traffic coming in, but also adding enough supply, or at least approving enough new building supply that you can help to at least slow down. I know that might even sound a bit comical right now because of the way housing costs are going, but to at least make sure that there's enough supply coming in to keep the cost of housing at least a little bit under control. And it's tough because it's just there's a lot of folks out there that can't afford to either rent or to purchase a home, and so you got to find that right balance. But that's another reason why I'm doing this, because if these were easy issues, then they wouldn't be issues. They would have been solved. So and so it's challenging, and I enjoy that. And I look at every decision that we make as a government body, at least from my perspective, is that it's all a balancing act. And so there's very rarely a hard yes or a hard no. It's always some sort of compromise. Resources are limited. Financial resources are limited, and so you got to prioritize, and you got to find that right kind of balance to get everything done and meet all the needs of the community. And I enjoy it, and so it's been a pretty exciting 8 months, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do it for at least the next 3.5 years, and then we'll see how the next election goes.
Well, it's interesting. You touched on just the roads, right? Having the infrastructure there for these new homes are built. And how many times have we seen in other areas where they build this stuff up and the roads aren't really addressed, and then there's just massive traffic that's trying to squeeze through these existing roads. So, yeah, that's a big one. Is having maybe the developers think about that.
Well, yeah, 100%. I don't know when the last time you drove up the Interstate 15 towards Riverside and Temecula, but it's when I was growing up as a kid, you could fly through there any time of the day and no problem. And now it's you catch it the wrong time, it's going to be a long trip. And the other interesting aspect, I think a lot of people don't think about it when we're talking about road infrastructure and traffic, is that we also have to keep in the back of our mind that, we've talked about technology all day, right? And vehicle technology is changing, and so from the things that we hear when we go to conferences and listen to other subject matter experts on this topic, that whole concept of driving on the roads and what that looks like, it's going to be much more autonomous in the future. And there's going to be a lot of changes there. So how much you invest in new road infrastructure today, you may not necessarily see the entire benefit of that if things change. And from what we're hearing is things are going to be changing in big ways over the next 12, 15, 20 years, which sounds like a long time, but like we've known each other for 12 years, and it seems like it flies by, right? And so again, when we don't have any of our own money, we only have your money, right? Everything is tax dollars, and so we have to use it wisely. And if sometimes if a freeway needs to be expanded, you have to really take into consideration how long is it going to take to expand it? What's going to be the impact on the drivers while the construction is taking place? And then how long into the future will taxpayers benefit from that expansion? And with technology changing and vehicles driving autonomously, and you can put cars closer together and you can really leverage the technology. It's none, like I said earlier, none of these challenges that communities and regions have are easy, and there's a lot of considerations that have to go into every decision. So it's and again, that's part of the reason why I love it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, if there's no problems, you wouldn't be involved, right? So, yep. But it's pretty neat to have your own backyard, that you're involved in your own community and getting to that level where you're able to sort of be involved in the planning stages of some of the stuff. Because you've been there for so long too, so that's pretty neat, Mike.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Just kind of curious from your perspective as a security professional, and I value your advice and things. So, what do you want to see? We're sort of building this community of security professionals, and I definitely want to talk to more on the end user side, so they're able to sort of bubble up what they're looking for. Whether it's in vendors or system integrators or anybody. But what would you like to see on the defender side of things? What would be something that you would see as valuable?
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're doing here with just this podcast is fabulous, and I think a lot of folks in the security world are going to really benefit from hearing from different perspectives and different people in different industries that are still doing a common thing with security. And I think the more that you can have that conversation, like I mentioned, I would meet with you and other key vendors over the years face to face, but this almost takes you're basically literally taking a microphone and you're putting it out there, and to where so many more people who you don't even know are going to watch this and access it, and that will hopefully maybe they'll learn something, maybe they'll reach out to either you, me, or whoever else you're interviewing, and it just kind of keeps those lines of communications and those relationships going, and I think that's really keep doing what you're doing, because I think you're on the right track.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, is to make it where somebody doesn't have to make all the mistakes that one would have to do before, and just find information a lot easier, as we're sort of going over. Going on Google is not easy, and then you have a lot of information to go through. So I'm hoping to sort of consolidate that, make one place to make it a little bit easier for people to find what they're looking for. But
super,
it starts with people, right? Because it's typical, like you were saying earlier, that there's a lot of commonality between just challenges that you have, whether you're in biopharma or corporate security or whatever it is. There's still commonalities within the security. So hopefully, as more of these great minds come together and tell people what their experiences are, that'll help some of the other people in those other industries as well. So
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks for jumping on. I really appreciate it, Mike. It was great talking to you again, and good luck with your city council membership. I think it's awesome that you're involved in that, and hats off to you, man.
Well, thanks, David. It was great seeing you again. I really appreciate you having me come on, and looking forward to watching the finished product, and reach out anytime. Keep in touch.
Absolutely. You got it. Thanks, Mike.
Have a good night, David.
It was great speaking with Mike. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and hearing from other security professionals. If you haven't already subscribed, click the link below, hit the notification bell for new episodes, and until next time, this is David with Defender.